Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome back to Spiggs Gaming, and today I am going to be reacting to another Halo lore video, how the Gravemind broke Cortana between Halo 2 and Halo 3. So there's roughly, a couple of months between the two? A couple of months? And we all know that it is something that, Chief went through that was hard for him, mostly hard on Cortana, but we all know that, it was kind of hard on Chief too, for him, because he kind of let it happen, in a sense. And he kind of feels guilty for that. But anyway, let's get into it.
Hey guys, welcome back. One of the original Halo trilogy's most important untold stories is what happened to Cortana when Chief left her behind on High Charity. While he returned to Earth, the Covenant's holy city was slowly turned from the shining beacon of the Great Journey into a mobile flood hive, home to the Gravemind, and Cortana was the last friendly left on board. At the end of Halo 2, we see her trying to gain control of the Gravemind, both in conversation and also physically by blocking his tentacles. But then, 38 days later, when Chief returns to rescue her, she's a broken, defeated mess. To say that Cortana was created from the brain of arguably the most intelligent human being to ever exist, bending and breaking her psyche to the point of self-defeat requires torture beyond human comprehension, and yet, the Gravemind managed to do it. And so, today, I want to go through exactly how the Gravemind managed to utterly break Cortana between Halo 2 and Halo 3, something that Halo 3 only lightly touches on. So, let's begin. Cortana's resilience to the Gravemind carried on past the end of Halo 2. She knew that she had to stay active and preoccupied, otherwise it'd tear her apart file by file, and learn all of humanity's secrets in mere hours. To try and get a feel of what she was dealing with, she started by using High Charity security cameras to build a composite view of the entire thing. When it tried to begin talking to her, she immediately interrupted, asking why it always talks in rhyme, and remarking that it was nothing personal, but "You're no Keats," referring to John Keats, an old English romantic poet whose poetry was written in iambic pentameter, the same speaking style used by the Gravemind. This was another attempt by Cortana to gain control of the conversation, but the Gravemind immediately hit back, insulting Cortana's human roots and stating that he consumed the memories of many poets that were far beyond human culture. These semantics carried on for a little while longer, with Cortana keeping her systems busy by asking such questions like, "Tell me a word that rhymes with orange," which caused the Gravemind to grow impatient. She felt a sudden, uncomfortable impact feeling, an indescribable feeling that turned out to be the Gravemind trying to access her large yet heavily encrypted file on Earth's defenses. She knew that she had to keep him at bay until Chief returned, so she tried to spark more filler conversations, but this time it was having none of it. The Gravemind struck back, this time slapping Cortana across the face, hard, causing her to feel a sort of animalistic pain sensation, which is something that AIs aren't used to. It's pretty interesting though that what sparks that sort of pain sensation in Cortana, given that she's made up of data, not flesh, is a foreign force trying to access her encrypted files. Pretty disturbingly interesting. This pain, however, was about to turn from physical to emotional. The Gravemind suddenly said, "John, so that's what you call him. Most touching." Cortana considered this to be one of her most personal pieces of information, and that the Gravemind had dug through her deep enough to find it meant only one thing: it was here to break her. After further pain sensations caused by its intrusion, the Gravemind made Cortana feel fear for the first time. It called her bluff. She'd said that she'd answer any of the Gravemind's questions to keep herself busy and to avoid it tearing her apart.
The Vino Positively Radiant Moisturizer with clinically proven soy and the tone and texture are back.
Guess who just ordered PetSmart from DoorDash?
Get more from your neighborhood.
But the Gravemind exposed this for exactly what it was, a way to feed her drug-like addiction of knowledge. She tried to laugh this off, but again, it just exposed her joking for what it was. A coping mechanism. This entire time, she'd also been getting these weird visions of a forest, a distinctly alien forest. However, these memories definitely weren't hers. This forest was nothing like anything that she'd ever seen before. It was genuinely alien, and she wanted to know more. This addiction to knowledge that the Gravemind had exposed was getting the better of her. This forest was nothing but a memory that the Gravemind had consumed, and it was using it to exploit her addiction and bait her into a trap. And it was working. In the forest, every line of code in her was wanting to know more, to investigate the environment, but she knew that it was a trap and tried to resist. This created a virtual feeling of suffocation. Her processing data was her oxygen, and she was cutting off its supply. The few times that her temptation got the better of her acted as vectors for the Gravemind to infiltrate her systems, causing these sharp, stinging pains on her legs. This simulation, this illusion, ultimately ended in Cortana experiencing the final moments of this forest past inhabitants at the hand of the Flood. She saw them swarm, she saw the Flood violently infecting others before viciously slaughtering and mutilating her. She'd been forced to experience death by the hand of the Flood. This temptation of vast knowledge had reminded her of something that Dr. Halsey once warned her about: rampancy, an almost dementia-like state caused by overconsumption of data in AIs. Eventually, knowledge would drown her, a thought that triggered the Gravemind to create a new illusion, this time floating her in an infinite ocean where the water was knowledge. She had to stay afloat. If she sunk into the knowledge and begun to absorb it, she'd never come back up. The Gravemind's voice carried over the ocean winds, trying to destroy her trust in humanity and Chief by claiming that she was merely a tool for them, doomed to one day go so crazy that her creators would shut her down and merely forget about her. This thought of leaving humanity behind made her worry about Chief and who was going to take care of him after she was gone, but the thought of him instantly brought her out of the illusion and back into reality. All along, the Gravemind had been simulating the 3 stages of rampancy within her: sorrow, anger, and envy. And now, to make it even worse, it was forcing her to experience the memories of a once infected UNSC Marine. She suddenly felt tired, sleep-deprived, a feeling that she'd never experienced before because she didn't need to, and it caused time to slow down. This made her begin to question Halsey's ethics when creating her. She was effectively her mother, and she doomed her to die after only 7 years? It just seemed callous. She then started to worry about Chief. After she was gone, he'd get paired with new AIs, whether he liked it or not. Would he prefer them? Would he even miss Cortana? Would he forget her? These thoughts hurt her so much, she screamed out in an electrified agony. However, she felt like she needed to hold on to this new dark reality. Despite the intense pain she was enduring because of it, she felt like there was something buried within it that might just save everything. But then, after playing into the Gravemind's hand for so long, she was finally rewarded. It told her of a single Covenant ship ravaged by the Flood that was being sent to Earth, the ship that crashed in Halo 3. This was her chance. Using the Gravemind's link to the ship, she had to somehow get a physical message to humanity on board to warn them of the impending Flood invasion. Earlier on, she'd created these data-stripped copies of herself, and she used every ounce of concentration that she still had to have one of these copies record a message before routing it through the Gravemind's link to the ship and getting it on board. Now that she was finally free of that burden, she had only one objective: survive until Chief came to rescue her, and it wasn't going to be easy. She began going through painful mood swings where her onset rampancy would quickly flick her between mental and emotional states. One minute she was resilient, then she was furious with Halsey, and then she was worried about what Chief would do after her, then worried that she'd be a broken mess when he rescued her. At the same time, all of these mental states inflicted physical pain too. She tried to fight back, inflicting some of the pain of rampancy on the Gravemind, causing him to lash out at her physically, but all attempts at retaliation were ultimately futile. The Gravemind had damaged her so greatly that she was beginning to unravel, slowly being tormented by the rampancy that she was being forced to suffer through. Then, a revelation, but not a good one. She realized the Gravemind had secretly let her record and send that message to Earth to lure Chief to its hive, so it could consume the one thing that Cortana cared most about: Her only bet now was to initiate a shutdown and deactivate herself, and just lie in wait for Chief to rescue her. Doing so put her in a state of almost sleep paralysis, teetering on the edge of oblivion, constantly tormented by the Gravemind's intrusions. She jumped between hating and missing Halsey, and the constant thought of erasing important memories to prevent the Gravemind from accessing them, at the cost of her personality, ate away at her. The thought of failing Chief caused her to break down into tears, when suddenly, she heard gunfire. With every new shot that she heard, she was hit with a new wave of pain because, at this point, she was almost one with the Flood, so whatever hurt the Flood, hurt the Gravemind, and thus, hurt her. She started to hopefully believe that the shots were Chief, and she tried calling out to him, but the Gravemind still had total control of her. It interrupted her calls with that of another similar sounding voice, almost like a crude imitation of her, but it wasn't coming from her. Suddenly, the roof began to cave in, but through it peered yet another illusion, or so she thought. It was Chief. She didn't believe it. She was teetering on the edge of rampancy, so maybe this was just another one of the Gravemind's illusions being used to sort of ease her into madness. Either way, she gave in and spoke to the illusion.
You found me.
Aww. That was so sad. Like, you kind of get about, like, what happened with Cortana. You know, it's like, you know that something happened to her, and you know that she went through some sort of physical pain, but you never, like, really knew about, like, what really happened, and that is so sad. Oh my god. That's kind of sad how, like, when Chief would, like, fire at the Flood, it would then hurt the Gravemind, which then in turn hurt her. So Chief was unintentionally hurting her. That is very, very sad. And it's kind of sweet, but also because like the ceiling started like caving in, you know, that's when you hit the barrier, and then like she didn't know if it was an illusion of the Gravemind or not, but she just talked to the illusion. Because she was done, and thank God that it happened to be Chief, because that, oh my gosh. Okay everybody, that is it for today's video. If you guys enjoyed it, then be sure to smash the like button because that'll help the channel tremendously. Comment below what you guys think of this video, and be sure to subscribe if you guys haven't already, and hit the bell icon to notify it whenever I post videos, so you do not miss me doing any more reactions just like this, or doing any more blind video game playthroughs just like Alan Wake Remastered, which I will be continuing soon. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye everybody.